Hello and welcome to Historia Romana. Episode 6. Foundations of the City. Having been crowned as the first king of Rome, Romulus now had to get into the grubby business of actually organizing his new city. Unfortunately, due to the lack of official records from this period, the later Roman authors who relayed this information to us described many of these institutions in ways that were more familiar to their own time, meaning that much of the information provided herein would not be accurate for early Rome. Nevertheless, this episode should serve as a general overview of the most important political and social foundations of both the Roman kingdom and the later Roman Republic. In one of his first official acts, Romulus decreed that each male settler would be freely granted citizenship and 2 jugera, roughly 1.3 acres of land. While comparatively small, this turned many of the settlers into landowners for the first time in their lives and cemented his popularity with the poorer members of the community. Many of these would have been honest shepherds, farmers and laborers who were looking for new opportunities or were just down on their luck. However, the ancient sources make much out of the more colorful characters who quickly flocked to the new settlement. Social outcasts, debtors, escaped slaves, and outright bandits who had nowhere else to run. Eager to build up his city's manpower, Romulus welcomed them all with open arms. So long as they restrained themselves from their most barbarous tendencies, their pasts did not matter to him. From almost the very beginning then, the populace of Rome took on its characteristic stereotype, an unwashed, coarse mob of vagabonds. This is, of course, an exaggeration, but the effects that this demographic construction will have on the character of the new city will be visible throughout not only Romulus's reign, but throughout Roman history. Obviously, the leader of a whole city cannot carry out the functions of government all by himself. To ensure general order, Romulus appointed a group of 12 men as lictors, roughly translated as sergeants, to serve as his personal attendants and bodyguards. They followed the king wherever he went, be it in the city or out on campaign, with the head of the bodyguard, the primus lictor, always at the king's side, waiting for orders. Their duties included not just protecting their sovereign, but also arresting any individual the king ordered them to, as well as carrying out capital punishment. To demonstrate their authority, each lictor carried a bundle of wooden rods known as a fasces. These would be tipped with an axe blade while on campaign, giving them their distinctive look. In future centuries, the lictors would continue in their role for consuls, dictators, emperors, and other high-ranking magistrates. Romulus presumably employed other officials to carry out other government work, tax collectors, record keepers, and the like, but we are told nothing about them. In order to win over the more influential members of the city, Romulus chose the 100 most reliable and well-connected men he could find and elevated them to a senate, roughly translating as Council of Elders. This newly formed institution was designed to be an advisory council for Romulus, and while the king was not legally obliged to take its advice, the prestige and influence of its members would make it hard to ignore. From their ranks, Romulus then chose a man to serve as the custos urbis, guardian of the city, who would serve as the presiding speaker of the Senate and act as the king's regent whenever he was absent from the city. The descendants of these first senators would form their own social class known as patricians, roughly translated as fathers. The rest of the population later became known as plebeians or commoners. Romulus also had to worry about the economic classes, as Rome was quickly becoming a very stratified society following a huge influx of poor migrants. To ensure harmony between rich and poor, Romulus formally introduced the concept of patronage, regulating the reciprocal duties of patrons and clients. Patrons were responsible for interpreting laws to their clients, supporting and defending them in legal disputes, managing their finances, drafting contracts for them, and generally taking care of their affairs, akin to a father caring for his children. On the other side, clients were required to provide dowries for their patrons' daughters if the father was unable to do so, ransom the patron and their children if they were captured during a raid, cover the costs of lawsuits and any fines their patrons might incur, and generally support their patron in their duties and responsibilities, treating them with the same devotion as if they were members of their own family. Finally, neither the patron nor the client were to accuse, bear witness against, or vote against each other. Severe punishment awaited those who violated these regulations. Patronage as a concept is obviously not unique to Rome, nor was it the only ancient society that attempted to regulate it, but these rules would nonetheless have huge knock-on effects in later generations. Through patronage, the Roman kingdom and later republic generally experienced amicable resolutions to even the most violent domestic conflicts for over 600 years, as the connections formed between patrons and clients created a web of interdependability that pulled each side back from the brink of social revolution. This network became more complicated, however, as the Romans expanded through conquest in later centuries. Once applied only to Roman citizens, these patronage rights would eventually be extended to colonies, confederate cities, and conquered territories, where local leaders would choose a Roman politician as their patron. Far from ensuring harmony, this enlarged patronage system would eventually bring the Roman state to its knees, as numerous politicians aimed to become the first man in Rome through the help of their foreign client networks. Romulus obviously had no way of knowing this, however. He was just concerned with creating a way to provide private welfare and social order for his people. With the basic social structure established, Romulus finally turned to forming an army to protect the city. Army is a loose term to be used at this stage, as it implies a level of training and organization that rarely existed in Italy at this time. This would have been more of a large raiding party than a proper army. There will be much more to say on the structure and tactics of the early Roman army in the corresponding appendices. But for now, all listeners need to know is that Romulus created an infantry levy that could be mobilized whenever needed, as well as a permanent cavalry force known as the Celeres, the Swift, who served as the king's bodyguard while on campaign, in addition to the Lictors. In the first years of the city's founding, we have no records of the Roman army engaging in any military conflict. Its creation was simply a precautionary measure to prepare for the future. It would not take long, however, for the citizens of Rome to see their first military action. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Until next time.